about is the environment. How we, maybe should look at different some alternative ways of transport other than cars and whatnot. And I find something that I notice a lot of people tend to say is, oh, people are lazy. People just take their cars because they're lazy and they don't want to take the bus, or they don't want to walk, or, And I feel that there's other layers to that. It's not just that people are lazy. There's different layers that prevent them from doing something, or apathy. When we talk about somebody who's apathetic or doesn't contribute to a charity or whatever, I don't think it's just because we can just like pass that off as being oh, because they don't care or whatever. That's a very shallow way of looking at it. And I think there's deeper levels that relate to society, relate to the functioning of society that nurtures these patterns in many people. I also wanted, and like with that, I just wanted to explore suffering in our society. I think our society isn't like we're North American society is prosperous economically compared to many other parts of the world, but I don't think we're free from a lot of pain and anguish, and I wanted to just explore that in this story. I wanted to bring out certain problems that I find that are kind of not really easily faced. I wanted to kind of bring that out and make them conspicuous, and and kind of look at the social implications of them. So there's backbiting. So another thing I just tried to touch on is that I feel that sometimes these problems that society faces, some of the issues I talked about earlier, can only be changed by certain fundamental shifts in the way we think, fundamental thought processes that we have, the way we analyze ourselves, the way we analyze our peers and the communities in which we live. So, characters. So there's two characters that are kind of in this story that are really significant. The protagonist, his name is Alan, and a friend of his, whose name is Sam Akra. And I found it really interesting writing this. Like, these two characters ended up being kind of a combination of myself. Like, they ended up holding like things that I found in myself, as well as being incorporating things I saw in other people, in some of my close friends and whatnot. That's why I put a picture up of one of my friends over here. I found I didn't really include a lot of physical descriptions in these characters because I don't know, they weren't really necessary. I found those kinds of physical things like setting it or how these characters look, they weren't really, I didn't feel them relevant, so I didn't really include them in this story. So I'll talk about the protagonist, Alan. Alan is a very strong individual. He ended up being a very strong individual, as I kind of wrote on about him. He's kind of lived this really utterly empty, purposeless life. He's kind of, not really had much conception of love in his life. His parents have kind of really neglected him. They've kind of been focused on, pleasures and sex and whatnot, and kind of neglected raising him properly. And so he's kind of, he's not really a very academically successful student. He's kind of, he's kind of in the mid-range. There's a certain part where he wanted to go to university, and he tried to apply for university but didn't get in, and then waited a year and got in as a mature student. He faces a lot of disappointment in his life. During school, he's a victim of kind of severe bullying. And I explore a little bit about how that bullying and such, really impacts his mind later on in his life. He's kind of on society's periphery. He's kind of like one of those, individuals who's kind of another face in the crowd. You wouldn't really recognize him for any distinction or whatnot. And he's attempted, because he's so empty, and this emptiness and purposeless really haunts him. He's attempted a few times to commit suicide. And this story starts out with, you know, this kind of final attempt, where he's like, he's ready, he's holding a knife, and he's ready to, like, you know, plunge it into his throat. But that's not something that's very easy to do, so he kind of is all like, wait, this, you know, maybe I should think this through. And then the story kind of goes through how his thought process works with that. Sam Akra is interesting. He's kind of like this. He's this character that Alan has met once in his life. Like he met in grade 11 English class. And Sam is he's a very interesting individual. He very effectively analyzes society. He very effectively brings up concepts that are kind of revolutionary and different. And he introduces them, and he kind of rants about them to Alan. And Alan doesn't really say much, but he's kind of like amazed at some of the things that Sam talks about, and he's also kind of attracted to that. Another thing that Sam does is he's very kind and very empowering to Alan. And because he's never had that in his life, like Sam becomes this really significant person in his life. Like he really impacts how he thinks and how he feels and such. And Alan kind of continues to remember Sam and reflects on things Sam has said to him and such. So something that I really tried hard to, I really wanted to explore is a process of reflection. Reflection in one's life. I think that the reason why is because I feel like reflection isn't something that many of us do a lot of or very effectively. And I feel that it's such an important, vital aspect to how we function, to how we improve ourselves, and to how we improve the society around us. And so like throughout the story, like I just tried with each paragraph to kind of show an almost, I tried to make it almost abstract and random, but also consistent and coherent about how Alan reflects, how he reflects on things Sam has said, how he reflects on things other people have said to him, experiences he's gone through, and how that's all led to his current state, and how